There's a street in Keokuk, Iowa called Palean that has notable hills. This was how Nadeane Sestito typically got to work at the Hy-Vee bakery in the downtown core. But as she pulled out of her home at 10:20 p.m. on February 5, 2019 to start her 11 p.m. shift, she made the decision to take a flatter road. The reason was because the state's southernmost city had just been hit that night by a major ice storm that had turned the streets into a bit of a skate pad. Instead of risking her car slipping on the hills of Palean, she went down the more inconvenient but flat South 2nd Street toward Maine. It was a relatively uneventful drive for Nadeane until she approached the lights on South 2nd in Maine. "I heard someone holler for help," she told a Lee County court in October of that year. She then turned the corner onto Maine. "I heard a second holler, and that's where I could tell where the yell for help was coming from," she said. "So I turned into the center of the mall parking lot, near the movie marquee, and I heard a third yell for help by the time I turned there, and spun around to park adjacent with the bank and point my headlights at who I could see was the person that was there hollering." Then Nadeane sees her. She exits her car to take a closer look. Lying face down in between the two poles of the transportation sign right next to Main Street, a woman lay with a blood trail from the area of a knocked-over garbage can. She pulls out her cell phone, calls 911, and kneels over to tend to the woman.
Now, 1 second, honey. Just stay there, okay?
Lee County 911, where's your
Just stay there, sweetie. Hi, I am in front of the Keokuk Mall. There's a lot of blood loss. This girl has been stabbed. She's on Main Street. She's laying here. I just went to leave to work. She's laying here. She's bleeding.
Okay,
But we're on Main Street. Like, she's on the ground.
Okay. Don't hang up with
I need an ambulance, quick,
We're
please.
getting them en route. Where is she stabbed at?
Where is it at, honey? Where are you stabbed at, sweetie? In your back? Okay, just lay still, sweetie.
Yeah,
Oh, my God, okay, lay still. I'm so sorry.
Did you guys just find her here?
Yeah, I come out of Casey's and Dee was turning around. I heard somebody yelling, "Help me!" And then I looked down and seen her.
Was she alone?
Yeah, she's by herself when we heard her yelling. And then we asked her when she was talking with a guy and said somebody in a case or something, I thought she said.
Brian DePriest was the captain overseeing the night shift when he got dispatched to the River City Mall where the victim lay on the sidewalk. He said she had shallow breathing and a faint pulse. Officers fought in vain to get a response from her as they rolled her on her back, but she wasn't moving. Captain DePriest saw 2 pools of blood under her. Another deputy said she saw her eyes open and a stab mark in her chest area and on her hand. By the time the paramedics arrived, she was not breathing. One paramedic found she was cold to the touch, with her initial observation being that she had 5 stab wounds to the chest, 1 to the back, and 1 to the hand. Life-saving measures, which began on the ground, were continued as she was transported to Keokuk Unity Point Hospital in life-threatening condition. Surveying the surrounding area, Captain DePriest made a couple of notable observations. There was a green city trash can that had been dented and knocked over. As he was taping off the area, he also noticed tire track impressions that went over the curb towards said trash can on the sidewalk. Both of these facts put together appeared to indicate that the car had jumped the curb and hit the trash can, which had been bolted to the ground. Because the weather was deteriorating, Captain DePriest took some quick photos of the scene before investigators were called in. Meanwhile, Captain DePriest traveled to Unity Point to check on the status of the victim. That's where he learned that at 11:05 p.m., she was pronounced deceased. An autopsy was performed the day after, with the fatal stab wounds penetrating her chest cavity and puncturing her lung and heart. The manner of death was homicide. The hospital then handed the victim's belongings in bags, which were then transferred over to Detectives Andy Whitaker and Steve Dre of the Keokuk Police Department. Inside were the victim's clothing and her identification card, including a driver's license from Missouri. The victim was 27-year-old mother of 4, CaLove Sackman. CaLove was born in July 1991 in Keokuk, one of 4 children to James and Tracy Sackman. The family moved to Grand Rapids, Iowa, where CaLove graduated from Metro High School in 2010. CaLove then moved out of the family home and back to Keokuk when she was around 22. Tracy said there were multiple reasons for that. Here, where she still had family, it was cheaper to live and it was easier to get a job. She was a stay-at-home mom when her kids were younger and struggled with juggling parenting on her own. She had 4 children by the time she started working in August 2018 at Henniges Automotive, which manufactures sealing and anti-vibration materials for vehicles. That job changed CaLove's outlook on life, her mother would say, because it paid well and she grew from her experience there. She enjoyed crafting and girls' nights out at the casino with her mom, sister, and grandma, according to her obituary, which described her as a loving and generous person who was always willing to help out her friends and family. She deeply loved her children and was a wonderful mom, added the obit. But it wasn't just her kids who she cared for. CaLove's maternal instincts extended to other children. In the spring of 2017, while she was living in Missouri, CaLove attempted to pull a 2-year-old off the highway after the child ran onto the road.
Tonight at 6, a Keokuk resident and child were hit 2 miles west of Wayland in Clark County, Missouri. This happened yesterday afternoon. The Clark County Sheriff's Office says CaLove Sackman was trying to remove a 2-year-old child from running onto the Highway 136 specifically, when they were both hit. Sackman and the child were transported to a local hospital for moderate injuries. No citations were issued.
But it was worse than it sounds. CaLove was pregnant at the time, and the collision caused some complications with her pregnancy, including a bleed that doctors monitored, her mother said. Carrying became difficult, and she spent a lot of time in bed rest. CaLove shared the news on her Facebook page, as well as the pain she was in. She was met with unequivocal praise, a hero for saving the child's life, people said of her. Now, less than 2 years later, it appeared to investigators that CaLove was hit by a car again, but the result was far worse. Slippery conditions would give investigators some reprieve for thinking this was an accident that turned into a hit and run. If not, that is, for the obvious stab wounds.
Did she say who?
We can't really move, but here, honey, put this under your face. You can't breathe, okay? They're almost here. Don't worry, honey. She knows, but she can't talk right now.
Okay.
Haley Malloy had clocked into her overnight shift as cashier at the Casey's convenience store on Main Street at 9 p.m. that cold, rainy, and foggy February night when in walked CaLove. That night, CaLove hitched a ride with Dawn Brown-Lee, a co-worker at the Henniges. Dawn was a regular at the Casey's convenience store, normally there to grab drinks and a snack 30 minutes before the start of her shifts. CaLove and Dawn had alternating shifts, so CaLove worked the 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. and Dawn worked the 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift. This was a convenient arrangement for them because they each had kids that needed looking after. This was why Dawn started staying over at CaLove's place at 910 Concert Street 5 to 6 days a week over the preceding 2 months before her death. The two were very close, having met when CaLove lived in a duplex on South 11th and Bank Streets in the city some 4 years ago. Dawn said they would spend nearly every day together, looking after each other's kids, watching movies, splitting groceries, and cooking dinners. Dawn recalls CaLove living with just her 3 children and at times a guy she was dating named Rob. CaLove left after a year and a half to Missouri for 2 years, after which the two spoke only sporadically, but they reconnected when she returned. That's when CaLove convinced Dawn to come work at the Henniges. Before making the trip to Casey's that night, CaLove had texted Dawn on her 5 p.m. break and asked if she found her son, who would miss curfew on occasion. Earlier that day, Dawn said her son wasn't where he was supposed to be, so CaLove clocked out at 7 p.m. to help find him. But 10 minutes after CaLove got home, Dawn's missing son walked in. Now CaLove was tasked with looking after the children, so she tells Dawn to take a nap because she has work later that night. A couple of hours later, at around 9 p.m., Dawn gets up, showers, and gets ready for work. That's when, at just before 9:30 p.m., CaLove asks Dawn if she could hitch a ride with her and her son to get a drink from Casey's. Dawn said CaLove had just paid rent and so she didn't have enough money for a drink. These gestures weren't uncommon. The two reciprocated such favors. And so, that puts us back here. They can be seen entering at 9:28 p.m. and leaving about 10 minutes later. Dawn then drives back to CaLove's house at about 9:45 p.m., pulling up behind a white 2-door sedan. Dawn said CaLove told her at Casey's that she was meeting someone back at the house. But while CaLove seemed comfortable and unstressed, Dawn said she had an uneasy feeling. CaLove exits Dawn's car and enters the white sedan. At that moment, Dawn said her 13-year-old son, a mama's boy as she called him, came out of the house and was upset that she didn't tell him where he was going. Dawn was distracted by the altercation, so when the white sedan took off, she said she couldn't tell which direction it went. Dawn said this was unusual because CaLove wouldn't just leave their kids in the house unattended without saying where she was going. But she didn't fret. One of Dawn's sons was old enough to temporarily care for the kids at home, so she drove to work and clocked in. A couple of hours later, while on her break at around 1 a.m., Dawn sees she's missed some Facebook Messenger calls. It is at this point here that she speaks with CaLove's cousin Zach and is told she needs to leave work as soon as she can. Minutes after the white sedan took off, at around 9:50 p.m., Haley, the cashier at Casey's, grabs some ice melt and walks out to sprinkle some on the store sidewalk. She's outside for about 10 minutes, head down and pouring, when she hears a female screaming for help. "Somebody please help me," she testified, saying the voice was coming from the area of the Hamilton Bridge near the mall. "He's going to kill me," she said she heard.
I was putting ice melt on the sidewalks and I heard a female screaming for help, saying, "Someone help me," several loud screams, and the scream suddenly stopped.
She then said she heard a loud thump, like something being hit. But despite trying to see where all this commotion was coming from, she said she couldn't see anything. She then went back inside and told a kitchen shift employee who had just arrived about what she heard. Haley said she didn't initially call 911 because this was part of a town where screaming was what she called a nightly occurrence. It's then, mere minutes later, when Nadeane discovers CaLove between the uprights of the Department of Transportation sign, mustering any strength to answer as many questions as she could before becoming unresponsive. Pedestrians described the night as chaotic, according to a local news report, with horrendous weather conditions and a fire at City Hall hours before the fatal stabbing. But there was far more chaos still to come. As Captain DePriest was working the crime scene that night, he was called on his radio to the scene of a possible hit-and-run in the 2100 block of Exchange Street. When he arrived in the very early morning hours of February 6, he took some photos to document the damage to save in case it was somehow linked to CaLove's death. One photo in particular stood out. White debris on the ground behind the vehicle that was struck. The debris would turn out to be chips of paint from a white vehicle.
Do you know who did it, sweetie? Who was it, sweetie? Okay. Huh? Who was it, sweetie? Okay.
You say Adam?
Adam?
Yeah. Adam who?
It was a little after 10 p.m. when Harley Clark, an over-the-road truck driver, parked his wife's Chevy Equinox in the parking lot of the Walmart on the west side of the city. That's when the 24-year-old saw what he said was a white vehicle come barreling into town with no one else on the road before stopping at a light. Harley said the car stood out because no one was driving that fast on the icy roads, testifying to his own difficulties driving to the Walmart just moments before. Harley and his friend then left the Walmart and were headed down South 21st Street, behind the farm and home supply store, when the same white car blew past them and rear-ended two cars on the right side of the road. Harley's friend got out of the car to check on the driver, who reversed out and almost hit him. It was clear the speeder wanted to get out of there. They then called 911 and followed him. They were about 25 feet behind him on 21st Street, by the Dairy Queen, and then he took a left on Main Street and they followed him northbound on Route 61 out of Keokuk. Eventually, the car pulled over just south of 340th Street and a figure emerged from the battered vehicle with a lit cigarette. The man had been driving on three wheels as the front right wheel's tire had blown out. Harley's friend called 911 again at around 10:14 p.m. to relay to them that the guy involved in the hit-and-run had just stopped his white Chevy Monte Carlo on the side of the road in the northbound lane of the 3500 block of Highway 61. Patrolman Joshua Wade was then dispatched to the scene.
Evening. Good evening. Deputy Wade, Lincoln County Sheriff's Office. How are you?
I could be better.
What's going on?
Got a flat tire and some messed up stuff over there on the right-hand side of my car, and it won't run now.
All right, well, let's step out of the roadway. All right. How did you get the damage to the car?
I slid into a pole in Keokuk.
Okay, you slid into a pole?
Yes.
Not another vehicle?
No.
Okay, where did that take place at?
Down on 2nd Street, going down the hill.
Down on 2nd Street?
2nd Street, going down the hill toward the river.
Okay, you got an ID on you?
Yeah.
Is this your vehicle?
Yes.
Where's the plates on it?
I just got it.
You got a title and everything like that?
It's in the glove box.
You got a bill of sale? No. What about insurance?
I haven't got insurance. I just got it 3 days ago.
Okay, you don't have insurance on it?
Not yet.
Okay. Leak on 5610, Iowa 27 when ready. .587, Adam Henry, 1968, again that's 587 AH 1968, Iowa. You had a pole?
10 from 15, you need me to head down that way?
10-2. He actually flagged me down. Looks like you've been driving a while on the rim.
I'm trying to.
Where are you trying to get to?
Fort Madison.
Fort Madison?
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to make it to Fort
I
Madison.
know I'm not going to make it to Fort Madison.
Okay.
610 from Wacom.
They won't crank up now.
Go ahead for 10.
Title and everything are in the glove box.
You can stay 1061 with that vehicle. Are you with him now?
10-4, 1061.
10-4, we have 1033 information.
10-4. No, head back to my squad real quick. Alright, go and stay up here with me real quick, okay?
Officer Wade radioed in the man's ID and was told that he, 25-year-old Adam McCain, was a person of interest in the stabbing back at the mall. The car he was driving was purchased some 3 days prior, Adam said, which is why he said he didn't have plates or insurance. Adam was put in handcuffs for officer safety and eventually escorted back to Keokuk PD. Officer Wade said there were no signs of intoxication or slurred speech coming from him. He was then later booked into the Lee County Jail, where he was photographed. Detective Drake completed a search warrant on him on February 6, which resulted in the confiscation of his outerwear and clothing. 2 buccal and 2 DNA swabs from his hands were also taken. He said at some point during his night of mischief, he tossed his iPhone 7 Plus out of the window, which was turned into Keokuk PD by a passerby who found it in the 100 block of South 7th Street. Meanwhile, Detective Whitaker executed his own search warrant on Adam's vehicle at 5:37 a.m. at Raridan's Auto Salvage Facility. The most glaring observation was that there was blood on the front passenger side quarter panel and front passenger A-frame of the car. On the steering wheel was a sandy substance that the detective knew was a key piece of evidence. That night, the trucks were out to melt the ice. That information, taken with the fact that prior to the search warrant, the medical investigator told detectives that CaLove's body had a sandy debris on it, meant the link was obvious. But by then, it was a moot discovery. Adam wasn't trying to hide what he did, and he was about to waive his Miranda rights to talk.
I'll give you a call sometime later. At a later date. Okay. Alright. Yeah, I killed that bitch though, so I love you. I'll talk to you later.
Brian Percy wasn't sure what to make of what he was being told, but he said he sure didn't believe it at first. It was around 10 p.m. when Brian heard the knock on his Exchange Street door near South 21st Street, where part of the citizen chase would occur. Brian opened the door to an agitated Adam McCain, the white sedan visible in his driveway. He told Brian he needed help changing a tire on his car before telling him he didn't know what to do. Before Brian could comprehend what was going on, Adam just blurted out, "I killed her." "Who?" Brian asked. "CaLove," Adam replied. Brian knew Adam for about 10 years, first as a regular customer at another business Brian previously owned called Shattered Sun Game and Hobby. The business relationship developed into a friendship, and so Adam was hired at the 4th Street Cafe doing dishes and cooking on a part-time basis, at least 4 days a week. In the evenings, Adam would visit Brian at another game store he owned called Phoenix Reborn Game and Hobby. Born in Houston, Texas, Adam said he was raised by his grandparents' uncle and father, primarily in Memphis, Tennessee, where he went to school up to the 11th grade, thereafter getting his high school equivalent GED in 2009. He said he was diagnosed as a child and again as an adult with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, attention deficit disorder, major depressive disorder, bipolar disorder, and anxiety panic attack disorder, all for which he said he took medication. He said the last time he took those meds, however, was between March and May 2018. He said he struggled with focusing and concentrating on teachers and schoolwork, had an especially difficult time with math and reading, and had difficulty making friends. He held cook jobs at fast food places early in his life, according to his online profiles. He told detectives he was halfway through an industrial maintenance technology program at Southeastern Community College in Keokuk, and was still employed by Brian up to the events of February 5. The first time Brian visited him was at Adam's grandfather's house, where he lived at the time. Brian recalls that Adam had moved around quite a bit over that time. 5 times total is what he said. By this point in the night, he had been living with his grandmother on River Valley Road in Fort Madison, about a 30-minute drive north of Keokuk. So when he came over that Friday night, Brian thought he was helping a friend. Brian went to get his jacket to assist Adam with changing his tire, still not actually believing that he did what he said he did. But when he returned to the door, Adam was gone. He later messaged Adam on Facebook telling him he thought he needed his help, but Adam never responded. Adam's story was so unbelievable to Brian that he didn't initially report the interaction to police, a decision he said he struggled with. He would only have to wait a week when he would learn through a call from investigators about what happened that night, and get confirmation that yes, Adam did what he said he did.
So earlier, it looks like you had some vehicle problems. Yeah, what happened with your vehicle?
I eventually fucking rammed into CaLove with it.
Okay.
Earlier that night, at 8:24 p.m., Adam texted CaLove, "What are you doing?" "Nothing," she responds. Adam then texts, "Who's all over there?" and "Is his daughter sleeping?" "Yes," CaLove responds. Seconds later, Adam texts, "You got another man there?" CaLove responds 3 seconds later with, "No." It was sometime in early 2017 when CaLove's mom, Tracy Sackman, said she learned that her daughter was pregnant with her 4th child. That news came shortly after she learned that CaLove and Adam McCain were dating. The relationship began on Facebook on January 3, 2017 and swiftly moved into the real world when, according to Adam, CaLove told him the same day to come over to her house to hang out. He said CaLove's 4th child was conceived with him that day. Days later, CaLove would announce on the same platform on which they met that they were officially dating.
Tell me about your guys' relationship as after that point. Like, is it good at the beginning?
It's good at the beginning.
But CaLove's mom, Tracy, was concerned. Acknowledging that she wasn't happy about all of CaLove's relationships, Tracy said she had a heart-to-heart conversation with her daughter about what type of person she should be with. One who works and helps care for her and the children. A provider, in fewer words, which Tracy said is exactly what CaLove struggled with when it came to picking her partners. One of the things we discussed was that Adam was in trouble with the law for drugs and that he had gotten in trouble again and was facing prison time, Tracy said during a deposition, adding this wasn't too long after CaLove was hit by the truck, saving the child's life.
We've been together 3 years almost. I've been having problems. She's just been controlling me, and fucking abusing me to the fullest extent that she fucking could, and I let it happen.
Tracy, who was at the time living in a different city in Iowa, said while Adam was in jail for drug-related offenses, he would send passive-aggressive letters to CaLove. Tracy said the letters would include stuff like, "I love you, but I can't stand this," and "I want to have a relationship with you, but I can't do the role with 4 children." With 4 children to care for, the couple were in some financial difficulty, which was primarily attributed to Adam's drug issues, his inability to hold down steady employment, and because he was not good with money, according to testimony. She was trying to provide for the family, Dawn said of CaLove during a deposition. She did get frustrated because Adam would not hold a job and help provide. They fought over finances and the kids, and he was tired of being home all the time, Dawn added. He wanted to be able to do things himself and didn't want to always be at home with the kids. Tracy said she tried to keep an open mind about the relationship and even spoke to Adam about the importance of staying clean and sober. She said she recalled the two of them talking about marijuana and CaLove telling her that he may have been using meth. CaLove told her mom that Adam assured her he was going to correct himself.
What's CaLove's mom's name?
Tracy Sackman.
Tracy? Where's Tracy live at?
In Hamilton.
In Hamilton? All right.
She's lucky she didn't get it too.
Okay.
Because she's lucky.
Sure. Help me understand, do you feel like Tracy and CaLove were like teaming up on you?
They do.
So tell me about that. Tell me what...
That's just what they do. That's the good kind of mom, mother, and daughter they are.
Okay.
They just have their female shenanigans. They know how to work in.
Okay. And you feel like you've been worked pretty good? Yeah.
Over the last few years. Yeah.
Okay.
Tracy said she knew the relationship was rocky. In fact, CaLove told her mom that Adam said that he wished she died when she got hit by that truck in Missouri. After their breakup, he sent her a rap song by Eminem called 25 to Life, whose lyrics includes talk of a woman who takes the man in the relationship for granted, to put it mildly. Dawn said Adam's verbal abuse included calling her fat, accusing her of dolling herself up for guys at work, and sleeping around behind his back. She said CaLove shot back and told him he was lazy, worthless, and didn't care about his daughter because he didn't want to help provide for her. Despite all that, she said she didn't hear concerns of physical abuse, as Dawn trusted her children in Adam's care when she was at work, and CaLove couldn't care for them. Tracy said she didn't hear about any physical abuse until June 2018, when one of her other children alleged that CaLove had sustained bruising by Adam's hand. She said she also came to learn that Adam would slam CaLove's head against the wall when she threatened to leave him. A sister and a woman who rented a place out to Adam and CaLove in Revere, Missouri, testified that she had seen CaLove's bruises inflicted by Adam. Tracy recalled another incident at her house wherein Adam and CaLove got into an argument over Adam giving their daughter a present that CaLove bought for her, which CaLove said hurt her feelings. Adam allegedly threatened her over it and smashed his phone in a burst of anger. That's when Tracy shot back at him and warned him that he ever laid a hand on her daughter, she would have him arrested. Tracy also said that she learned of Adam's alleged angry streak through CaLove's 5-year-old son, who was in the family truck when Adam allegedly ripped off the door handle in a moment of rage. In more testimony, a woman who worked at George Washington Elementary, which was attended by one of CaLove's children, said that the child was not happy to go home with Adam, saying that when he went home, he'd be hungry and wouldn't be able to get his snack when CaLove wasn't home. Tracy said she begged her daughter every day to get a restraining order out on him. And then came Thanksgiving 2018. When she was a child, she would come on holidays, Aunt Sally Dobson Cheryl said of CaLove in court. Summers, she would stay at the farm with us. When she got a little bit older, she moved to Cedar Rapids with her mom. After that, she would come during the summer to visit, and then on holidays to visit, until she became an adult. And then after she became an adult, she would come for family visits, barbecues, holidays, and cookouts. On that Thanksgiving day in 2018, Adam, CaLove, and her children were at Sally's house to celebrate. But things got tense when Adam and CaLove got into another one of their arguments that escalated when Adam told CaLove that if she ever left him, he would kill her and the kids. Sally testified that CaLove would not listen to him. In fact, she said CaLove told him to shut up. But what CaLove didn't know at the time was that Adam was serious. The final straw was an incident on January 22, 2019, when CaLove heard that Adam had put a pillow on the head of one of her sons and sat on it. CaLove already had a rough go at trying to get him out of the house previously, but she was determined this time. Tired of the physical and verbal abuse, tired of being called fat, tired of bearing the load of the family. So she called and pleaded with her mom, on the basis that she didn't have a strong enough fortitude and will to come and remove Adam from the home at 910 Concert Street once and for all. So I went to their house, Tracy said, and I told Adam He had 15 minutes to leave.
And made me get my shit, get out of my own house in 15 minutes, and just the pain and the fucking loneliness that that's caused me just caused me to snap. So I fucking killed her, dude.
Okay. Hey, Adam.
She's gonna feel the pain that I fucking felt. That's always what it was.
Okay. Adam, it takes a lot to say that, man.
That's all it was, man. She doesn't deserve to fucking do that to any other man. She has four children by 4 different baby daddies. I'm in one of them, and I'm sure she did that to every last one of them. She's not gonna fucking do it again.
How you been sleeping lately? How's this?
Not good at all.
Okay. So tell me about that. Like how often would you normally sleep?
I've gotten like 2.5, 3 hours of sleep ever since she made me get out.
And how long has that been since she had asked you to get out?
4 or 5 days ago.
4 or 5 days ago. Okay. So where have you been staying since then?
My grandmother.
Your grandma's? All right.
I could have, bullshitted you and fucking let the investigation go on and on and on and on and on and on, but that's just, I just didn't want to do that, man.
Okay.
I knew what was going to happen if I were to make that decision on it.
Tracy said Adam fussed over being kicked out of the house, saying, "Well, this isn't fair." She said he looked at CaLove and told her he didn't have to go, and CaLove told him, "Don't look at me, my mom's the one talking to you." With 6 minutes to spare, Adam was gone. Later that day, he texted Tracy for the final time, telling her that she was part of the problem, and that when his daughter grew up, he would tell her that Tracy was a piece of shite for messing up his life. Longer was the life of the communications he had with CaLove, who still had to deal in the meantime with the care of their child together. So texts and phone calls continued between the two, with those communications being shared with her mom, who said she continued to beg her to get a restraining order out on him. But of all the things the mother-daughter pair shared with each other, one important piece wasn't: the fact that CaLove was going to see Adam on the night of her murder. And so the text conversation continued that February 5 night. 8:27 p.m. Adam to CaLove. "I was gonna come get my daughter, but she's sleeping. I got something I want to give you." "What?" CaLove asks. "Surprise," he replies, adding, "Can I come by and talk for a few?" She asks, "Okay, for what?" "About money," he replies. "I don't have any, sorry," she says, before he could say, "and your financial situation."
Did she ever threaten you? Like, tell me about that.
Yeah, she fucking, after we broke up and she kicked me out, she's blackmailed me, talking about if you don't give me, all this money that I need, and I'm gonna fuck your life up. I called my fucking dad and I told him the other night. I told him I'm not living like that anymore. I'm not gonna be controlled by a woman like that.
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
"I'm about to leave Fort Madison," he tells her, immediately followed by, "I'll see you soon." She replies, "That's not a talk I want to have." "Well, I'm gonna come by and holler at you for a sec," he tells her.
When did you buy the car?
I traded it.
Oh, you traded it?
For a van. I had a van, we had a family, I thought. And I had a bunch of kids to haul around, so I traded a van for it, just whatever date on that title, just a couple days ago.
Okay.
"What do you want, Adam? The only time you talk to me is when you're trying to get me to do something," she texts. But he denies that he's trying to get her to do something. "I just want to see you and my daughter's sleeping face, and then just about stuff, and then it's fine, I'll be there soon." CaLove tells him he's not taking their daughter, to which he confirms.
I was doing good. I'm a good fucking dude. Doing really good in life. And I just got with the wrong woman and wanted to treat me the wrong type of way. I'm not the one, man. Not the one. I put up with it for as long as I could. I talked to everybody I could about it, my family, and everybody. Inside, I just couldn't handle it anymore. I couldn't handle just, taking the pain and not fucking there being any repercussions for it. So she had to feel some of that too.
She then asks him again what he wants to talk about, but he doesn't elaborate, only saying that he's coming. She presses him, and he tells her to talk to you, to see you. Then finally, maybe to give you $1,000. Then immediately following that, Maybe not. Adam finally cracks her armor. Yeah, okay, she tells him. Just depends on how you react, he tells her. To what, she asks.
Well, she tried jumping out of my car.
Okay.
I said, no, you don't. I was done talking to her. So I stopped and I grabbed her by her shirt before she could roll away from the car. I hit her once. Boom. Stabbed her once.
Anyway, I'm on my way. Is someone there to watch the kids so we can take a ride or no? She tells him he is worrying her because she doesn't know why they need to take a ride. But he tells her there's no reason to be worried and that she is the mother of his kid and he wants to help. We don't have to ride, he assures her. We can talk quietly in your room or in my car. But CaLove senses something. Yeah, you want something. You ain't fooling me. She then asks how long he's going to be, to which he says, I'm leaving now. Then, at 9:41 p.m., he texts her. I'm here. Where'd you go? With Dawn, she tells him, right before she tells him she's pulling up. I got to take a dump, he tells her a minute later. Adam then tells the detectives the rest.
When do you pick her up tonight? Like, when do you see her? Like,
I picked her up at her house.
at her house? Okay. Is that what's that address?
19 Constant Street, the house that we bought together, that we moved into together.
So you put some work and stuff into that house?
Yes, we had a life. And even though all the red flags and shit, throughout the whole time, I just ignored them for my daughter.
All right. And so you went over and picked her up. Was the plan to go over and pick her up and hang out, or what was the plan tonight?
Just to go talk.
To go talk and try to smooth things over, or
Just about financial situations.
okay, all right.
We just moved and taken out loans and stuff like that. And after she wanted to decide to fucking kick me out, she had trouble paying that stuff back, and I ended up having no money, so I was gonna see what we could work on.
Okay, all right.
And then as we got to driving, she just started having an attitude. Like, I don't want to talk about this anymore, and my emotions just started coming up, and I started feeling all the pain that I had, and I just kept asking her. I said, I told her, I know you're wrong. I told her, I said, you know you're wrong for this, I said, you know that you did me bogus, and you and your mom are wrong, and Carnal will bite you in the ass, and I just kind of went from there, and I just told her how I felt, how much pain she's caused me. I asked her, I said, do you understand how much fucking pain I've been, loneliness and all that I've been going through ever since you did me like that, you know what I mean? After we've been together for so long, after everything we did, and she didn't have nothing to say. She just wanted to. She was just playing the scared little girl card. She can play the man card when she needs to, but when it comes down, when shit gets serious, she turns into a scared little girl. So,
okay.
Went from there.
Okay. So where are you guys driving from? Like driving around at?
Town.
Driving around town. Is that in Keokuk? Yeah. So, kind of help me understand. You said earlier that you had hit her with the car. How does that happen?
Well, she tried jumping out of my car.
Okay.
I said, no, you don't. I was done talking to her. So I stopped and I grabbed her by her shirt before she could roll away from the car. I hit her once. Boom. Stabbed her once.
Okay.
She crawled over the curb. I pulled around. I got out. Stabbed her again. Sliced her in the face. She got up. I turned around. I smashed her in between the fucking garbage can and my car. That.
Okay. All right.
And I see her laying there on the ground, so I just took off.
All right. Did that cause your front tire to be flat? Is that what happened there?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I was trying to make it home so my grandma loved her. I probably wouldn't see her for a long time, but
okay.
That didn't happen.
All right. When you got a hold of her, though, did you have plans to do this? Was this something that you, or this just something like in the almost boom? You just got upset. Okay. Just happened. All right. What's your grandma's name?
Marjorie.
Marjorie.
She had no idea what I was doing. I just told her I was going to get a drink at the gas station.
At the end of his interview with detectives, Adam asks to call his uncle instead of his grandmother because he said he didn't have the heart to tell her.
Hey, Uncle Keith.
Yeah, what's up?
There's no easy way to say this.
What?
I'm sitting here with the homicide investigators. I lost it. I fucking murdered CaLove.
What?
I lost it, and I fucking murdered CaLove. And I just want you to know that so you can tell everybody else, because you're the easiest one to talk to. You fucking lost my shit, and I fucking stabbed her and ran her over. I couldn't deal with the fucking pain anymore. You alright? Hello? I'm sorry, I love you, okay? Tell everybody I love them. You're right. Bye.
Catherine was a convenience store worker when one day Adam allegedly came into her store, which is frequented by drug users, and lost his cool over a request to see his ID. She said she thought he was going to jump the counter and hit her. Catherine wasn't just any convenience store employee. She was a prospective juror in Adam McCain's first-degree murder trial in October 2019. And this kind of story wouldn't normally be significant enough to tell, as prospective jurors are regularly yanked from the jury pool if there's a conflict of interest, or if they have already made up their minds about the guilt or innocence of the accused. Because it turns out, Catherine's daughter worked with CaLove, and her daughter knew enough about CaLove to recall that Adam blew up her phone with texts and calls on the night she was murdered. She said her daughter, who told her later that night that CaLove was murdered, relayed to her that Adam was being belligerent to his ex. "I don't have a high opinion of him," Catherine said of Adam before being let go by the court. Several jurors acknowledged either knowing CaLove or knowing about the crime, going so far as to say they had no doubt about Adam's guilt. Adam had been sitting in on jury selection, and after a break, he returned with his lawyers and requested a bench trial. "I believe that the area is way too small to have a fair trial," Adam said in defense of his decision. "I think everybody knows everybody, and even though some people say, yeah, I can do it, yes, I can do it, I don't think I'm going to have any sort of fairness out of this trial." Prosecuting attorney Ross Braden said he was surprised by the decision and said, "People do, for different reasons, ask to have their case tried by a judge, but usually before this point," he said, according to news site The Penn City Current. While Adam's lawyers didn't try to deny that he killed CaLove, they argued this wasn't premeditated. Instead, they argued this was an impulsive killing. Impulsive, they said, like their relationship, expecting a child so soon after they started dating. Impulsive, they said, because he has a childlike limited capacity to premeditate and deliberate. Impulsive, they said, because he had been deprived of sleep by the time he murdered CaLove. Impulsive, they said, because he was driving through an ice storm, consistent with someone not thinking through the consequences of his actions. Impulsive, they said, because a decent getaway plan doesn't include driving on 3 wheels. And impulsive, they said, because he said as much during his interrogation. He snapped. He lost it. Words that don't indicate premeditation, they said. He wants to help with money. He wants to see his daughter. And he just wants to talk, Adam's team said, referencing what they argued were relatively benign text messages that contained no anger or threats. He wanted to use the bathroom, meet in her house. This wasn't alluring into his car suggesting premeditation, they continued. His team also argued the two weren't in the car for long, suggesting that there was no premeditation. The verbal impasse suddenly went out of control. She tried to jump out of the car, he pulled her back in and stabbed her before she eventually jumped out and landed on her face. The fact her phone was next to her, they said, suggests he may have hoped she'd get help. The autopsy finding no fractures consistent with being hit by a vehicle showed he didn't ram her with his car, they said. But if this wasn't premeditation, the state asked, then what would explain the breaks in between the no less than 7 times he stabbed her? He could have walked away. Instead, after she jumped out of the car and landed face first on the ground, he stabbed her again in the back. Then when he was leaving and he saw her still moving on the ground, he went back and stabbed her again. He described her as a scared little girl who was frightened enough to try to jump out of the car, yet he pulled her back in, even though she already made clear that she didn't want to talk about his issues. She was done with him, but he wasn't with her, the state said, adding there isn't a specific amount of time ascribed by the law for premeditation to occur. He said himself he needed to make sure CaLove didn't wrong any other man like she allegedly wronged him. The fact is, Adam did this willfully and he did this intentionally, the state charged. He showed no remorse for what he did hours later, they continued, when there was plenty of time to cool down and think about his actions. What's more, he told investigators that Tracy was lucky she didn't get it too. That shows intent, the state went on. In its rebuttal to the defense, the state also argued that there was no medical evidence that Adam was functioning as a child, and in fact, he said he was halfway through his industrial maintenance degree at community college. Ultimately, the state argued that if this was about a simple chat about finances or his problems with the relationship, it could have waited for a night that wasn't marred by treacherous driving conditions. Otherwise, such a chat could have been held over the communications apps. But Adam was not going to be deterred from coming down, and he absolutely wasn't going to accept that CaLove wasn't going to hear him out. Judge Marianne Brown agreed with the state. She outlined the various elements of premeditation, the pulling of CaLove back in the car, the fact that he returned to stab her again after realizing she was still moving, that there was evidence that she was stabbed multiple times in each instance, that he tried to ram her with his car, that he brought and then disposed of the butterfly knife even though he said they were just going to talk, that he didn't call for help when she clearly needed it, and that he was a man on a mission, as reflected in the text messages that night, who knew that his daughter was already asleep. It is possible that if she had done exactly what he wanted and confessed her wrongs, that he might not have harmed her, Judge Brown said. His statement that when she tried to get out of the car, he drug her back in because he was not done with her is evidence that if she didn't conform to his demands, he was going to make her pay. Judge Brown found Adam McCain guilty of first-degree murder, which comes with a mandatory sentence of life in prison without parole.
Happy and energetic and outgoing, and she was so devoted to her children.
I've watched my daughter grow up so much in the last few months of her life, and even though she was already a hero, a loving mother, and one of the most giving people I know, I will have to live with not knowing the woman that she was meant to be, Tracy said in a victim impact statement. I will forever be heartbroken by the loss of my daughter. From my personal standpoint, sleepless nights, the stress, the nerves, the shakes my body goes through. I worked 6-7 days a week, 12-hour days. I did not return back to work. CaLove's sister Nicole read a letter from one of CaLove's sons, who was 11 at the time, about the crime that impacted so many people. You hurt my feelings and you hurt me, taking my mom away, the letter said. You hurt my mom a lot. You called me mean names. You hurt me when you hit me. You hit me with your hand, and it hurt so much. Eating a piece of your candy bar didn't give you the right to hit me. You didn't make my mommy feel safe. She was safe when you stayed at the card shop all night. I feel like you hurt all of us a lot. You hurt my feelings when you called me poop mongrel and slowpoke. Because of you, my mom died. Nicole said she has herself been taking medications for depression and anxiety just to function as the result of this. As for any words from Adam,
but I didn't intend for this to happen. I love CaLove very much. I wasn't thinking. I would do anything if I could take her place. I'm very sorry.
Words that did not appease Braden.
A vicious attack. It was senseless, and now, 4 children are growing up without a mom. Somebody lost their daughter, somebody lost their sister. It's absolutely terrible. There's no, getting that person back for these individuals, but at least he's going to go to prison for the rest of his life.
Sackman's mother says while the guilty verdict provides some peace of mind,
it doesn't move on for us. It doesn't change anything from that date. Nothing will ever be the same.
Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to listen to me narrate this story, which is based on the primary sources. Special mention goes to the reporters for bringing light to these cases, to the staffs at the Lee County Clerk of Courts, the Lee County Attorney's Office, and the court reporter for providing the materials and assisting on matters related to this case. And finally, to you guys for engaging in the subject matter. Be well, engage in acts of charity, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.